Hi, friend. Welcome back to the Real Personal Branding Podcast. I am Lauren V. Davis. I'm a personal branding strategist, a small business consultant, a music lover, and definitely your enthusiastic supporter in creating the business of your dreams, one that feels like you in every single way. Today's guest is someone I have admired for years and whose work I absolutely love, Laura Belgray. And I first met Laura when we were part of the launch for one of Selena Sue's PR courses. It was called Impacting Millions. And I ended up co-hosting a couple of Clubhouse rooms with her in like 2020 when Clubhouse was a thing. And I have just been such a massive supporter of her work ever since. I asked her to be on my podcast about a year ago. And I am so excited to finally publish on this episode. Laura Belgray is the founder of Talking Shrimp, the co-creator of The Copy Cure, and the author of Tough Titties on living your best life when you are the effing worst. She's an award-winning copywriting expert. She helps entrepreneurs find the perfect words to express and sell what they do in a way that gets them paid to be themselves. So you can see why I like her. Through her work with hundreds of clients, including online biggies like Marie Forleo and Amy Porterfield, she's seen firsthand that putting you into your copy and all through your business is pure magic for getting people to love you up, share your ideas, and happily click your buy button. In addition to online types, Laura's list of clients and credits include NBC, Bravo, HBO, TBS, Fandango, and many, many more. So if you watch TV and don't skip the commercials, you've probably seen her words on the air. Tough Titties is her first book. I absolutely loved it. I recommend it to everyone. It was published via Hachette and it is available now. In this episode, Laura and I are going to talk about so many things that you're going to love, but we're going to definitely dive into how conversational is the new professional, why every email does not need to be a value bomb, and how to get past feeling salesy in your emails. And last but not least, the secrets to writing subject lines that make people curious and make them click right away. Here is my conversation with the one and only Laura Belgray. Welcome to the show, Laura Belgray. I'm so happy that you're here.
Oh, thank you so much, Lauren. I love being here.
Yay. Okay, so you are one of my favorite writers. You're one of my favorite authors, honestly, that I've, paid attention to, followed within the last decade for sure. I get your emails every week, and you kind of have had this like personal branding evolution I've watched happen over a series of years. Your copywriting style is known for being just so unapologetically authentic. And your best-selling book, Tough Titties, which we'll talk about later, was written in the same way. And for those listeners who are just getting to know you, can you kind of walk us through your background story a little bit? What some maybe pivotal moments were that shaped the Laura Belgray brand or shaped really you and who you are today?
I have to go so far back in time. Let me try and give you the nutshell version. I always talk myself into a corner because I started at like 1991. But
I love that.
let's just say I worked in TV promos for many years. And for those who don't know what promos are, they're those commercials that the networks run for their own shows. So, tonight on Friends, or it's not TV, it's HBO. Those are some old ones, obviously. So I did that for Nickelodeon and Nick at Night. And it was truly my dream job because I always wanted to do something that got me paid to watch TV. And that was as close as it comes, pretty much, even though I had to do more than just watch TV. And then in, say, like my late 30s, around 40, I was feeling like in a creative rut there. I was just tired of I loved what I did, but I was kind of tired of writing for something else in someone or something else's voice, like the voice of the network all the time. And I really wanted to write in my voice. And I didn't know what that would involve. I didn't have a book idea. I didn't have a screenplay idea. And it just so happened that I had made a friend in hip hop class at Crunch earlier on, and her name was Marie Forleo. And we would just walk home together. I hated her at first because she was so annoyingly perfect and hit every move and had the bounciest hair and the best body. She was in the front of the class, and it's like, oh God, she's here again. And then we started talking one day, and it turned out she was really nice and I couldn't hate her. So we became friends, and yeah, we would walk home from class together every class and talk about, this is a dark reference now, but talk about The Apprentice, and which we both enjoyed. And and the innocent days. Yeah, and so we became good friends, and she had this business that I didn't really understand. All I knew was that she made a fortune, like, she was a life coach, but then would have these classes online, like, these phone calls with a group that she would tell me about, and it would make, like, $20,000 for the month. I would tell my husband about this. I'm like, "That my friend Marie, like, talks to a bunch of people on the phone, and it makes like $20,000." And I I had no idea how I would end up doing anything like that, but it was a seed planted in my mind. She invited me to speak at her first live event, which was called, she had a program called Rich, Happy, and Hot, and this was called Rich, Happy, and Hot Live. And she invited me to speak on copywriting because that's what I did for TV. And so I put together a talk called Five Secrets to Non-Sucky Copy and presented it to her at her event, which was like 50 people. And people started coming up to me
And if you
afterwards.
know Marie Forleo right now, like, you know that it would 50-person event for her would probably be a tiny little event nowadays. So if you don't
Right,
know who she is,
right.
obviously,
That
yeah, it's
yeah.
funny
Yeah,
thinking
that
about
would be a
that
get
now. Yeah,
together.
right, exactly.
Right. No, it's wild how it started. I mean, it was, yeah, 50 people in the Soho House library, and to me, it was a huge deal. So anyway, people started coming up to me after I gave my talk and said, "Hey, I'm a realtor," or "Hey, I'm a coach. I don't know what to write for my website or on my about page. Can I hire you? Can you help me?" And I would just say yes. It was a totally different form of writing than I had ever done in promos. That was really just network branding. And this was, in a sense, direct response, like, click here, buy now, sign up. But I didn't
Yeah,
hesitate to say, yes, I can do that because I knew I could write in a human voice, and I knew that most people could not. They couldn't write like themselves and conversationally. And so I took on some private clients and eventually ended up segueing entirely into this world of the online business world and dropping my TV clients over time, even though it was a dream job and way cooler, just objectively speaking, than writing direct response copy. There's like, it was very satisfying to write stuff for people, and it would help them with their business. It would help them succeed in their careers, and they would tell me so. And so it was gratifying, and there was no limit to what I could charge. People would pay whatever I charged, whereas in TV promos, they'd be like, "Wow, I don't even get paid that much. Sorry,
yeah,
we don't have that in the budget." So that's how Talking Shrimp was built, really, and it became this a thriving copywriting business. Then eventually I got tired of doing client work and still wanted to write in my own voice only and make money from that. And so I started using my emails, which I'd been writing since the very beginning, but just about everything and nothing, whatever I wanted to talk about, started using them to sell and created courses. And I had created a course with Marie called The Copy Cure that was doing great. And so I then segued into that world of being a course creator and basically making a living from what I'd always fantasized about, from my emails, just from my
yeah.
writing.
I think what I hear in that story in so many
Hmm.
ways is, well, first of all, that this is not like an overnight success situation,
No.
right? As almost nothing is. But I think that, you know, it's easy to ask, like, why isn't this happening faster? Why isn't this Why isn't this business like exactly what I need it to be immediately? And I think what I see in your story is there is like this constant iteration into like, okay, what works, but not only what works, but what works and also makes me happy and allows me to like live the life that I want, not just
Yeah.
live someone else's life or like do what someone else wants me to do. And I think that's really special, like because seeing your business now and seeing your book and seeing like this amazing beautiful business that actually helps people, which in turn also makes you feel good, right? Like that's really cool
Hmm.
to see, but it didn't happen in one day, right?
No, as a matter of fact, I didn't even realize it until this month. This month is the 15th anniversary of Talking Shrimp, of my
Wow.
business. Like, so it took a long time. I mean, it didn't take till I'd say 10 years, the 10-year mark to start making the kind of money I had always fantasized about
Yeah.
and having the kind of business I sort of dreamed of. I'm not a visionary. I never had this vision for my business, like this is what it's going to look like one day. But I had a vague fantasy of getting paid to be me
Oh,
and getting paid a lot for it. And I
yes.
didn't, that didn't really come to fruition till year 10. So it took a while and it wasn't kind of a linear path either. It wasn't like, this is what I envisioned, this is how it's going to happen, and I'm going to work towards it over 10 years. It was me just taking on the work that came my way and feeling it out and deciding like who I liked working with and not knowing what was beyond that, beyond clients, and also thinking that I didn't have it in me to create a course or to be a leader of any sort. So it took a long time for me to even try my hand at that. So it wasn't just like, 10 straight years of trying and trying and trying, striving. It was 10 years of kind of, I don't know what I'm doing. I hope I figure out some kind of pivot at some point that makes more money and that feels even more me. That's how I work.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that story. And I feel like that is why I've always related so much to your content because I feel very similar in that respect. You've talked a lot about storytelling in your copy, and you tell some of the
Yeah.
greatest stories. Like I open up your emails all the time because of the stories, even when I'm not ready to buy something that you're sharing or I feel like the way that you share stories is so uber relatable. And I know that you talk about the importance of that in some of the things that you teach in some of your courses. I think sometimes there's this thing inside us to says like, "Oh my gosh, but I'm so boring. I don't have stories to tell." I don't there's
Yeah.
like the boring factor like, but who wants to hear from me? What do I have to talk about that is so interesting? Like Laura's life must just be so exciting and so relatable. There's so many things that happen, right? So how can entrepreneurs or small business owners kind of dig inside them, find the compelling stories that don't feel like they're trying to force a story out of them, but also that help them eliminate that fear of sounding boring or feeling boring, or maybe they don't feel like they have an obvious story to tell.
Yeah. First of all, I rarely have an obvious story to tell. Like once I ran through all my obvious stories, it was down to just the daily little small moments, which I love. One reason I love writing, I write 3 emails a week in general. And one reason I love doing that is it gives me a chance to go deep on something really small, on these tiny moments in life. And so I end up writing, as you know, about like my husband being dissatisfied with the raisin count in his raisin brand. Or, I mean, I write about food a lot, or just like the hellscape of working together at home and
Yeah.
him commenting on my dirty dishes and like all kinds of things that happen during the day to anyone. That's why they're so relatable, is it's like, oh my God, me too. And I think everyone, even if you think you have the most mundane, boring, run of the mill life where nothing happens and you don't live in an exciting place, you don't live in New York where, wild, crazy things happen on the street. Everybody has stories that they tell to their friends, right?
So
Like
true.
if you're having dinner with a group of friends and everyone's trading stories about this or that, there's no way you don't have a like, oh my gosh, me too. That's what happened to me last week or just yesterday, or I do that all the time, or I think that all the time, or that's something I do every day. We all have something to contribute when we're with people who make us feel like ourselves. And so that's what you need to channel to come up with stories is just like, what happened today? What happened yesterday? Like, what's one tiny thing, that tiny odd thought that you had? And I've created a whole, like a freebie for this. It's a list of prompts. It's called Story Goldmine, and it's 63 places to mine your everyday life for stories that sell. And so it's full of those, full of prompts and questions that will get you thinking like, oh, I do have a story for that. Oh,
Yeah.
that's a story I could tell. And your everyday life, no matter how boring you think it is a gold mine of story material,
I love,
especially if it's boring.
yeah, especially if it's boring. I love the idea of like, what is the story you tell around the dinner table when you're swapping stories? And I remember when I was listening to that, you talk about that in your book as well, which we'll continue to talk about. But I remember you sharing part of that, and I was thinking to myself, like, what is one of the stories that I tell that everyone laughs at, or like that has been a crowd pleaser a few times? And I incorporated that story. It was about actually recording a tape cassette instead of writing a letter like a normal child, recording a tape cassette for Justin Timberlake and mailing it to him, to the address I found in Tiger Beat, telling him, professing my love as a 10-year-old and letting him know that he was making the wrong choice by dating Britney Spears. So there was it was a long story, but I incorporated it actually into one of my talks on stage, and it was a game changer. So I've definitely used that tip for sure, and I love that. I think it's good to like think about, okay, well, how do I actually act in real life? Like there's people behind these devices, not just like we don't have to act differently digitally than we do in real life when we tell a story. We just have to be ourselves, right?
Right. Right, exactly. Just because you're writing to a bunch of people and it's this sort of formal exercise of, say, writing an email, doesn't mean you have to be a different person and put on a different hat. Just like I like to make every one of my emails what I call an EFAB, which stands for email from a bestie.
Oh, I
So
love that.
I picture a best friend when I'm writing it so that I don't switch into like talking to a bunch of prospects mode. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Okay, so let's talk about some tactical copywriting tips. I feel like this is the perfect segue into that. So you talk a lot about writing non-sucky copy, right? What are some of the
Mhm.
biggest mistakes that you see people making in their copywriting, especially entrepreneurs and small business owners, and how do you think that they can fix those mistakes relatively quickly?
Yeah. First of all, one is being formal, putting on that writer hat or business hat and thinking, now I am writing, and therefore I must write formally in, in a business-like tone.
Yes.
And you have to remember, first of all, I think that conversational is the new professional in this online age. And a lot of people confuse professional for formal and think that that is how you are be professional and get taken seriously, where you have to remember that you are never a business writing to a business. You are a person writing to a person. There's always a person reading your email. A business can't read an email. And we want to be, when we open an email or read anything, we want to be engaged. We want to be entertained. We want to feel like we're part of a conversation. So writing in a formal way, buttoned up way is not the way to communicate these days. And if your customer or your reader is buttoned up, you can write in a way that is less slangy and a little more better punctuated and grammatically correct, but it doesn't mean it has to be stiff and formal. So that's the first mistake. Another mistake and I see is putting in too many words, using what I call verbal bubble wrap, where you have something to say, but you feel like you have to wrap it up in all this dressing. So you might say, you know, long ago when I was a little girl, I strongly believe, or like ever since I was a little girl, I have always strongly believed in the core of my very heart, the guiding true principle that has become my core value, which is that every woman, no matter who she is or where she's from or or her shape or her looks, deserves to feel beautiful. Whereas what you want to do is just say, every woman deserves to feel beautiful.
Yeah,
That's
that's
it.
it.
Boom.
Yeah,
Get
that's
rid
it.
of all that wrap. Like, it's so annoying to unwrap a present that's full. Like, oh, now they're packing peanuts. Oh, now there's bubble
God.
wrap. Oh, now there's more tissue paper. Oh, God, now I have to take the tissue paper out of the shoes. Like, it's just so get rid of that and get in the clear.
The attention span is just so short, right? So like by the time that somebody gets down to the core of what you're trying to say, you might have already lost them.
Right, exactly. And we have this notion, maybe it's from writing papers for school where you are expected to have a certain number of words in it.
Mm.
And you would just buff it out with words and words and words. Maybe it's from that, or it just feels like it's fancier and more writerly if we fill it with words. I don't know what it comes from, but it is a service to your reader and to your writing to cut all of the extra fat and just get down to the core meaning and like boil it down to like any word that you can lose without changing the meaning of the sentence, cut it. So too many words, all the
Such a
bubble
good
wrap,
tip.
that's a big mistake. Yeah. And another is writing in cliches and vague terms rather than writing with concrete original detail. To make detail is the magic to me that makes writing pop, that gives it grip and keeps the eyes on it. So, for instance, someone will write, at one time in my life, I was in a dark place, possibly the darkest I've ever been in, but I then came out of it, and here's how I did it. Like, I don't want to hear you were in a dark place. I want to hear what that looked like.
Yeah.
So, 3 years ago, I was crouched in the corner of the dark room in my dirty sweats, eating Doritos from the bag and stalking my ex on Facebook all day long. Like, that's a dark picture. That I want to
Yes.
know what it looks like. So those are all original details. Dirty sweats, Doritos from the bag, dark room, crouched. Like paint this paint the scene. So I like to give things what I call the Steven Spielberg test because I still haven't come up with an iconic female director. But if you handed this to a director or say an illustrator, would the director know how to set up the scene? Would they know what they're shooting? And if you handed it to an illustrator, would they know what they're drawing?
Got it.
What does
That's
this look
really
like?
good. Yeah, that's really good. That makes a lot of sense. I think those are great examples. I started getting lost thinking about like myself, like and how I write emails. And I think while we try to like make it a, like what you said, more writerly, right? Like trying to make it
Yeah.
more like, oh, like let me see if I can make someone feel something with this. Really to truly feel what they want to feel, they just have to be able to say, oh, I know exactly what that's like. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And saying
Hmm.
saying someone is in a dark place with, or I've been in a dark place, that might, maybe someone will feel like, oh yeah, I've been in a dark place too, but they're not going to be able to imagine it. They're not going to be able to actually like taste the Doritos and remember what it's like to be in that place where they can't stop stalking their ex on Facebook. you know so that's,
Right. Exactly.
I started thinking about that with my own, and I was thinking about how I would change some of my own stuff. But that's just absolutely gold. Thank you for those examples.
I just want to interject that, like, there's an expression that the more specific something is, the more universal.
Oh,
So You're like a dark place. Sure, that's universal, but not as universal as showing exactly what it looked like, even though that is entirely specific to you. It becomes more relatable, more universal when you paint it out with the details.
Yeah. There was a period of my life after I went through a dark place that I was like sharing a little bit more specifically on Instagram about like where I was at and how I was feeling. And it's what was really interesting is about a year later, I had a couple of guys come up to me at a workshop or a conference and say, "Hey, I just wanted to thank you for the posts you've been sharing and like how vulnerable they are and how specific they are because it's really helped me understand how to be a better partner to my spouse, like how to actually show up for them and not make it about me." And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." Like they would have never liked my posts or, shared them or done anything with them. But what was really specific to me was actually super helpful to somebody in a completely outside environment, you know? And so that it made me
Yeah.
think about that. Yeah. That was really
Yeah.
interesting.
I'm curious, like, what specifically did you write about? Like, what about this dark place you were in?
Yeah.
What was it?
I was writing about I was writing post divorce about like a lot of what I felt like was a loss of identity for me and trying to build that identity back into my life without the lens of somebody else and what that person might think. And it
Right.
was really it was very cathartic for me to write about it. And I had to be a bit vague also on purpose. Like it was
Uh-huh. Yeah.
intentional.
Because of
Um,
people involved.
yes. But
Yeah.
the people who were reading through the lines were able to read through the lines on what I was feeling and what I was experiencing. And I think that sharing from my perspective the feelings that I was having and being a little more specific about those feelings actually helped other people process through some things that maybe they couldn't understand about somebody else in their life, or they couldn't quite
Yeah.
put their finger on what was happening. And it was an interesting, yeah, it was an interesting thing that happened naturally, but I'm thinking through this now and I'm like, that's actually, it's pretty, this is 100% true. And it doesn't have to be about a dark place, right? It can be about the number of
No.
raisins and Raisin Bran in your Raisin Bran bowl. So
Yes.
you
Yes,
know what I mean?
exactly.
It has to just be relatable and
Yeah.
understandable and real. And that's why we're
Yes.
on the Real Personal Branding podcast, right?
Yes, exactly.
One of the reasons I open your emails like at least once a week. I won't say I open every single email, but I do open most of them, and I open them because your email subject lines are just so freaking good. Do you have like an art form to crafting the perfect subject line, or that kind of help you with your open rates or help you guide people into that story? What is your advice for someone that is kind of just starting to build their list who wants to have people open their emails and also be surprised and delighted with what's inside?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I recommend downloading my guide to non-sucky subject lines, which I'll mention at the end, the URL, but
And
it's
we will
great and
link
it
you
has
up.
frameworks.
Yep.
Yes. But one trick when you are at a loss for subject lines and you want some inspiration, something to motivate in email, because sometimes a great subject line can drive the email, like an idea will follow, is look back. I mean, this kind of depends how old you are and how long you've been on email. But if you have really old emails still in your inbox that were between you and friends, personal emails, and I say depends how old you are because nowadays we never email our friends unless we're forwarding something, right? We
Right.
text, but I mine go back far enough, like to 2006 in the email I've been using with friends. And so I scroll all the way back there and look at subject lines between me and my friends. And they're so personal and must open that I've
Yeah.
like stolen those many times from my emails to my list, like have to cancel, frowny face. That was probably one of my number one most opened emails. Or like hee hee too mean. or, oh my God, this pic. Like there are subject lines like that that always get open because they feel really personal. And also keep in mind that subject lines are not like article headlines. They should be in, I think they should not be in title case, meaning the first letter of each word is capitalized. They should be in sentence case or all lowercase, the way you might write a text, because you want this to say, this is from a person to a person, not this is from a business or from a newsletter to many, many people. And I often, almost always come up with my subject lines as I'm writing the email or after I've written the email, if I have an idea for the email. And I like to pull out something that has conflict to it, that implies a story. So just the other day, I wrote an email it was really just a reminder of a sale that I was having, like a discount on my mini course. And I could have just written it like discount ends tonight. Instead, I put that in the preview text so that they would still see that reminder. And the email was like, I started the email with just, hey, it's Sunday morning. I wrote this in advance, so I'm not sure what I'm doing right now, but I'm probably eating pancakes that I roped my husband into making, and probably defending my use of butter because he's chastising me for using so much butter and syrup. And I included a picture and I said, please don't weigh in. I don't want to hear from you too.
Yeah.
So I made the subject line, please don't weigh in. And so I think everything should evoke curiosity and make
Yeah.
someone say, wait, what's this about? I want to read, I want to know what shouldn't I weigh in on? What is this about? So that's the secret sauce to my subject lines, is making them all curiosity piquer
Yeah.
and something that doesn't tell the whole story. Sometimes I'll make it more obvious, like this is what the email's about. Like I wrote one on Monday the subject line was how not to sell with email, because my people mostly want to know how to sell with email. Like that's
Right.
my main audience. And how not to is also is a more curiosity provoking twist on how to.
It creates contrast and piques
Hmm.
curiosity, and I love both of those
Yes.
tips. Yeah. So the last part that people always think about in an email, well, first of all, some of the people I've worked with when we first start, they say like, "Do you actually sell things from email?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's like primarily where I sell things. Like that's where my sales come
Yeah.
from, right?" So I think one, there's a misconception that building an email list like that might help you or might not help you, right? Like, but building an email list can be so helpful to your business and to nurturing the people who eventually become your clients or your customers or your biggest supporters, your biggest advocates. But when it comes to selling in emails and including calls to action or including something that you're selling or something that you're sharing with the world, it can sometimes feel a little bit tricky, especially for business owners who have this feeling of like, I don't want to be too pushy. I don't want to be a salesperson in every email. I don't know how to include that without feeling weird about it. What is your secret for writing calls to action that feel natural and maybe even drive some results, but don't feel overly salesy?
I would say um, toss out the idea that selling is overly salesy,
I love that.
and don't bury the message that you're selling something. Don't be shy
Mm,
about it. Remember that people will want this thing that you are offering, and maybe even thank you for telling them about it. So have
yes.
confidence that what you're offering is good and people want it. We all have this notion that people don't want to be sold to. They don't want to be sold something that you don't believe in, that it's clear is not a good offer, is not, maybe the pitch is not true. So they want you to sell to them authentically, sell them something that really is good, they want to know about it.
Yeah.
So people don't want, and people, it's true sometimes that people don't want to be sold to if it's something they're not interested in. And not everyone's going to be interested in what you're selling. And that's okay. You have
Right.
to get over that and remember, like, this is a service to people who would want it.
Yes, exactly. It's like having your open sign turned around on your brick and mortar business saying we're open for business. That's really what it boils down to. It's like, yeah, of course you're
Yeah.
selling something. You are a business owner and this is your livelihood and this is how you support your life. So, yes,
Right.
I love that. Okay, let's talk about your book. Tough Titties is the book that you released and published. It's a wonderful book. It's full of hilarious and super brutally honest stories. I started reading it. I got about a quarter of the way through when I was on your book launch team, enough to write a great review and share it with the world. And I loved it then, but then I finished reading it and kind of started it over again on Audible while we were on our cross country road trip across the country in our van this year. And I was so pulled into it. And I know that's the point, right? But I was like
Uh-huh.
listening to it and I was like, this feels like an incredibly engaging TV series that I want to keep going. Like I want to keep knowing what happens more, what happens next. And I wanted more the minute that it was over. What do you feel like was the biggest challenge in writing a book about your real life? And how did you decide which personal stories to include while maintaining you being the real you the whole way through?
You just nailed what was the challenge. All in your question answered your question, because
Oh,
the
great.
biggest challenge was deciding what to include and what to cut.
Uh,
And because I had so much more that I wanted to say. This is my first book, so I had what I would call first book syndrome,
mhm.
where especially because it's a memoir and essays, where I'm writing everything I remember about my life. I mean, I put down every story that I ever told or wanted to tell, and it was way longer than the book could be. And also, not everything fit the theme of the book once that emerged. And once I
Uh,
named it and gave it the subtitle on living your best life when you're the effing worst, there were just some stories that I could not make fit. And that was a really hard thing for me, because I am very inclusive when it comes to my material, when it comes to my
yeah.
writing. I just want to include everything. And when I start to edit often, I will like cut one word and then add a whole paragraph. And so
Yes.
it's always one step forward, like 5 steps back in the editing process for me. I can't bear to lose things. And we know that that is the secret to, that's the foundation of editing, is losing stuff that you're in love with, like kill your darlings, right?
Yes.
So that was really hard. And ultimately, I think the things that I chose were the stories that felt like they fit thematically, that I
Mm,
could make fit thematically. Themes of either like being the worst or feeling like the worst, or a hot mess, or just behind, or feeling like a late bloomer, or being somebody who cannot comply with the supposed do's in life.
yeah.
So everything had to fit that theme in a way.
Oh, it was so good. I highly recommend anyone who loved this interview, please, please buy the book. You'll thank me later. One of the standout themes in your book is embracing this imperfection or like that hot mess feeling or like the behind or like, why do I have to do this? Is it because I'm supposed to or is it because I want to? Why do you think being open about your flaws, your imperfections, your relatable moments resonates so deeply with people, especially in today's very curated, very chat GPT, social media driven world? Give me your input on that.
I think it's because it makes them feel less alone,
Uh,
because almost everybody, or anyone that I like or would be friends with, feels like a bit of a hot mess in
it's so
some
true.
way or another. Like maybe they're terrible at adulting, or maybe they're bad at relationships. Everyone feels like they are bad at life, just about. Some people are maybe type A and buttoned up about everything, but even those people seem to relate to the book in that it gives them permission to be less perfect. So I think when you share your imperfections, it is permissive. It gives permission and relief to other people. Feel like it's okay not to be perfect. And maybe I can be my true self. And it that then they give permission to somebody else to be fully themselves and so on and so on. And it has a ripple effect.
Quite the ripple effect. I have loved this interview so much. One of the questions that I always ask people on the show is, what is one myth that you would like to bust about really anything? It could be about copywriting, it could be about emails, it could be about life, because
Yeah.
you have so many good inputs about all of those things. Let me know what you want to share.
I think the myth I want to bust is a marketing myth,
Ooh,
marketing and copywriting myth
okay.
about delivering value. If you
Ooh,
are in
ooh.
this world at all, you will hear people talk about dropping massive value, dropping value bombs. Did you hear that, Value Nation? Did you hear that value bomb? Just if anyone was on Clubhouse, they heard people,
My God.
oh God,
Uh,
I still have trauma from that. Everyone would say, well, I'm just here to add value. And it's easy to think that value has to come in the form of actionable tips, advice that you can follow. And especially when they're writing an email and they've heard, well, you have to deliver value in every email, whether you're selling or not, deliver value. So it's very easy to think that that has to be teaching or advice. And it does not. I think value can come in the form of, first of all, entertaining me. Like if you are, I'm looking for entertainment more than anything. I want to be engaged. I want to be entertained. I want to be distracted, pulled away from my life and
yes.
obsessed. Or inspiring me to try something, giving me a recommendation, like recommending one thing, a book you just read. That is value. Talking about a time you were humiliated or failed, that makes me feel less alone. That's another form of value. So there's so many forms of value besides and beyond teaching and dropping value bombs, dropping gems of wisdom that I prefer. And especially in an email, when I see an email that is instructional that I know I'm going to have to like take action on and learn from, I tend not to open it because I'm too busy. Maybe I'll save it for later. It would be like, that's a should read. But the one that sounds like a great story or that's like a hot take or something really relatable, that's the one I'm going to open right away.
Oh, that's the best tip ever. And it cracked me up with the value bounds thing. And you and I actually, fun fact, the first time I ever talked to you was on Clubhouse or after a Clubhouse room that we were both in, or like someone both pulled us in as co-hosts. And and you were talking about like the pretentiousness of some of the rooms on Clubhouse and like how it was like just completely lacking like the welcoming vibe that it was supposed to be having or whatever. And then you and I
Oh
had
my
a
God.
conversation on Instagram afterwards where we both like just dumped all of our like frustrations about Clubhouse. And now here we are today, many years later, after the days of
Here we
Clubhouse.
are. So, right. A good like nearly 4 years later, right?
Yeah.
Because it was like beginning early 2021.
Yes.
And yeah, I really do have PTSD from it. Like I was trying so hard to grow on Clubhouse and be part of it. And it was a really like stressful platform, even
Yeah.
though it was all audio.
It
And the whole
was.
like hierarchy, there was such a hierarchy there. Like make sure you follow your mods. And if you
Yeah.
weren't called up to be a mod, then you were a loser. Oh,
It's so true.
shiver.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a weird time. And it was like, I think because we had so many, like, we had so much less contact with the outside world at that point, because it was during
Yeah.
2020, that we were all like, is this the new
Yes.
thing? We have to do this. Like, we have to,
Right.
And oh, okay. Well, I'm glad we're past this. We can move forward
Yes.
with
And
our lives.
something came of it. Right. Here
Yes.
we are.
Yes.
So I'm glad I got value out of it.
Yes. We got massive value bombs out of Clubhouse. All right. Thank you for being here. I really appreciated your time today, and I'm so excited to release this episode.
Thank you. I'm so excited to hear it.
I hope you loved that conversation with Laura as much as I did. I just loved it. She has a way of reminding us that putting you into your words and your business is absolutely the secret to connecting and to being remembered and to actually making sales without feeling pushy. If you haven't picked up Tough Titties yet, go grab it. It's totally laugh out loud funny. It's honest. It's packed with so many lessons about showing up even when you feel like a hot mess. And it reads really like a really good TV show, except for that it was her real life. You just gotta read it. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend who might be able to use the reminder that their voice is their superpower. Leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or anywhere that you're listening to this podcast really also helps people discover these conversations, discover my podcast, and it helps me make my podcast better. I want you to build a brand and a business that feels like home to you. So thank you so much for listening to the Real Personal Branding Podcast. I am Lauren V. Davis, and I'll see you next time.